All right, I'm joined by Alex Cyr. And Alex, we're sitting in your living room. We're podding in person. Say that 5 times fast.
Podding in person.
Because we just watched the men's 10,000 meter final, the first medal event of these Paris Olympic Games. So we thought we'd jump on and do an instant reaction pod. Never done one of these before. See if we can get in and out in about 15 or 20 here. So much to talk about. Dude, that was a banger of a 10,000 meters. Who said 10,000 meters was not fun to watch? Crazy.
Oh my God. This is also the first 10,000 meters where I didn't see a commercial break during the entire thing.
That's right. And I was, so we were live. We were doing live updates on the site for this, as we will do for many of the events, particularly the medal events throughout the Olympics. And that was one of the little chirps that I made, little comments, little critical comments that I made. Because I remember actually in previous Olympic Games and certainly World Championships, 5,000 meters, 10,000 meters for sure, they're always cutting away to commercial or to a field event or whatever. And often you'd miss the big break. Actually, earlier on in the day, during the 5,000 meter qualification round, one of the two heats, they cut away to one of the field events right when there was a break and kind of missed the action of like how it sort of shook out. But kudos to them. I guess all the field events were wrapped for the day. They cleared everything out. 10,000 meter final, and it was just 26 and change minutes of increasing drama. Super exciting. You could just feel the intensity ratcheting up and ratcheting up. You said at one point, like halfway through, you're like, oh no, at the beginning, you're like, I'm nervous. Like I'm like shaking here. This is exciting.
Oh, I got nervous. Well, some of these races you can cut to commercial, or you feel like you can, because the first 2, 3, 4 kilometers of the 10,000 meters are just throwaway clicks, right? People just no one's taking the lead. It's slower. Everyone's jockeying for position. This one here was intense from the start. They didn't go out in total breakneck pace. I mean, here in Paris, it was 24 degrees Celsius. I think it would have been dumb to go out at world record pace, but they did turn the screw. You had a bunch of usual suspects. You had your Joshua Chepetegei, the world record holder. You had Moh Ahmed from Canada, who's always in the mix. You had Grant Fisher, who was lobbying for medals. And then you had a massive Ethiopian contingent. Now, this year, before the Olympics, the top 6 10,000 meter times in the world had been run by Ethiopians, 6 different Ethiopians. The top 3, AREGAWI, Kejelcha, and the defending Olympic champion Barega, were in this race. And so they got into it with about 8 legit contenders, I would say. And the lead pack was 12 to 13 men deep up until past the 5K point. So there wasn't really any time to look away from the TV. I couldn't really tell who the favorites were halfway through.
I mean, they meant business right from the start. It was like serious lap 1. And actually, I mean, it feels like a million years ago now, but in the opening couple of laps of the race, the defending Olympic champ, Salomon Barega, who's a phenomenal runner, jumped to the front and pushed the pace, and was like, "Whoa, what's going on here?" Because if you haven't watched a lot of distance track events before, and you're listening to this, and you're trying to sort of like figure your way out in the dark here, watching these Olympics, particularly when you get to the longer distance stuff, the seasoned vets, the top dogs in these races, tend to sit back a little bit, certainly in the first half, and allow someone else to set the pace and do the work. But in this case, it was like there was a sense of urgency with this event. Like they all just kind of came knowing that there was no clear dominant favorite, even though you had the world record holder in Joshua Chepetegei of Uganda in the race. But he sat back. He sat back in sort of like the back half of the lead pack, which was massive for the first half of the race, and then only really moved up and made his presence felt in the last couple of kilometers of the race, which turns out smart move.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into that in a minute. But you had this group of Ethiopians, the three guys, towards the front pretty much the entire race, driving the pace. And kudos to them because they made this a serious race. I mean, one of the many crazy stats from this race, if you want to get kind of nerdy and in the weeds with times, the top 13 runners in this race went under the previous Olympic record. 13 runners.
Yeah.
Of 27 runners in the field.
Yeah, so half the field went faster than the old Olympic record.
Yeah, so it was basically like get on the record train here. We got a couple of national records in there as well. To run under 27 minutes is extraordinary. And you smashed a 16-year-old Olympic record that was held by the great Kenenisa Bekele, who set it in 27:01 back in Beijing in 2008. So it felt like that record was going to fall. I think in our preview pod for this event that we put out a couple of days ago, we noted that Olympic record might fall here, but that the world record wouldn't because it's just, it's low 26. So
yeah.
But man, like the last mile of this race felt like watching a 1500 meter. It was, you didn't know what was going to happen. Usually there's this kind of sit and kick mentality, but I honestly had no idea whether or not one of these top contenders was just going to go at it with a mile to go. It felt like a total wild card of event. And I'm sure, when we take a step back, let this marinate a little bit, we can sort of find its right place in history. And I don't want to be a prisoner of the moment, but it's one of the best distance track finals I've ever seen.
Because I think it combines two things. It had a whole lot of talent, but it had a lot of ambiguity too. Like it didn't have one runaway winner. This wasn't a Usain Bolt kind of final. Even though we had the world record holder, there was too much talent to predict who was going to win. And the runners even knew that. You could tell, like, I think there were three parts of this race, right? Those first 7 kilometers, that last mile that you mentioned, Michael, but then there was a weird latent period between the two where they slowed down. The athletes ran their slowest kilometer in the 8th kilometer, which is uncharacteristic of these races. Usually kilometers 2, 3, 4 call them the sleepers. But it was like there was a part where no one wanted to take the lead because no one really knew who was the favorite. Kejelcha was near the front, but I think he was expecting one of his teammates or even CHEPTEGEI to challenge him, and then he was probably waiting to do a counter move, but no one really wanted to take it.
And CHEPTEGEI was at that stage even, that's pretty late in the race. That's 80% into this race. Easy math. And he's still sitting in the sort of back half of this big clump of, I think it was 13 runners that at that stage were all single file, just giving her. It was like they're hitting low 60s second laps. They're still on well under, I think it was like they're around obviously at 26:40 something pace. So everyone's pushing very, very hard, but no one really kind of knew who was going to make the next move. And it kind of became this weird, like, it's almost like a standoff in an old Western movie where they're all kind of like, it's like super tense. You could hear a pin drop, except for the screaming 75,000 people in the stadium. And you could just kind of tell, like, everyone was kind of looking around at everybody else, and it got a little chesty, got a little aggressive. Your boy Kejelcha there he was doing some shoving. He was doing some look. At one point there's this great slow-mo in the broadcast where they cut back to, there's some chippiness and there was like some pushing in the lead pack, like late into the race, and you see Kejelcha looking over his shoulder. I think it was at Moh Ahmed, actually, if I'm not mistaken, kind of like what the fuck, man? Like,
yeah.
Like, you're clipping me. We're all like, there was like a little bit of shoving, a little bit of pushing forward, that sort of thing. So, these guys have competed against each other quite a bit. They're sort of all in this same generation of top flight distance runners that have all kind of graduated through the ranks more or less together. Most of them faced each other in 2021 in Tokyo. They certainly all squared off in Budapest last year, and then in Eugene in 2022 in the World Championships. So they know each other well. I'm not sure how much some of these guys like each other, although it seems like Joshua Chepetegei is a lovely dude that by all accounts everyone likes. And it was like, I mean, he won the race, but he was so fired up at the end, and he went and he rang the bell at the end, which I thought was really funny.
What's that bell? It's like when you win,
I think it was like
an Olympic final, you get to ring.
Was that the bell lap bell? I don't know.
It's too big for that, I think. And it's off the track. Yeah, I think.
Is that a like when I know that bells have historically been used in various events when like a record is broken or someone does something superlative, they ring the bell.
Well, it might be that he broke the Olympic record.
Broke the Olympic record, so they're like,
the bell.
And he had this like just this childlike shit-eating grin on his face, whatever, and just a single ring, and then he was done.
Yeah, he didn't abuse the right. Just
No.
ring the bell once and take off. But they were talking about Cheptegei at the end that apparently he's taking a lot of his winnings to build a fitness center or a health and running center or complex back in his city in Uganda. So very cool.
And he's done after this. Like he's done on the track.
On the track.
And so he's moving up to the marathon. I mean, you can tell the guy's been doing the miles, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because like he was able to hang in there. I mean, he's the world record holder and he's run like 30 seconds faster than that. But still, the championship style race, there's a lot of stress, a lot of pressure. No one's setting the pace for you. It's a lot of gear shifts. And he looked like he was kind of out of this race until all of a sudden he was very much in this race. And that is the most dominant last 600 to 400 meters I've seen a distance runner put down in quite a long time. Like he just got to the front and was like, fuck this. I'm taking over this race. You all have to beat me. And I'm going out hard right now. Mm. And he held, I don't know, we don't have the split up in front of us right now for the last 400 meters of this race, but it was a pretty impressive last 400 and no one could touch him.
No, to be honest, I forgot about Cheptegei with 800 to go.
So did I.
Right? As Kajelcha and Ahmed were jostling for position, Barega was in the mix. Grant Fisher was up there. I was thinking of the other storylines. I was wondering, can Barega repeat? Is Kajelcha too strong for the rest of them? Will Fisher bring glory to America? What's happening? Can Moh Ahmed, as a Canadian, you want Moh Ahmed to finally land on a podium in the 10,000 meters. Will he land on the podium? Will he win gold? I had forgotten about Cheptegei, and that last 400 was really something. Near the end, and I think what made the race exciting too is that as well as he was running, Cheptegei, the others were not dropping far behind. AREGAWI kicked really strongly at the end. Fisher never let Cheptegei get more than, 20, 30 meters ahead. It was tight.
Less, yeah. I'd say, obviously Cheptegei runs one of the signature races of his career thus far. Grant Fisher, this is Apex Mountain for him right now. This is the peak for him right now. He's flying high. That he ran, I think, overall probably he can't be the smartest race because he didn't win the race. And I think Cheptegei just showed how much confidence they had going in, sitting back in that pack and then stepping in when the moment was right and winning the race on his own terms. But Grant Fisher was in the sweet spot in third, fourth place, letting the Ethiopian guys do the work in front of him, matching all the moves, looking very comfortable, wasn't overloaded, wasn't huffing and puffing and running too hard. Obviously, it was well within his means. And then he held off. He had silver like right up until the last couple of meters. Like AREGAWI of Ethiopia just out-sprinted him in the last, 5 meters of this race to take that silver medal. Mm-hmm. So Grant Fisher, really incredible performance. Heartbreak of the day. Moh Ahmed, he was on the podium until he wasn't right at the end. And he ran so intelligently throughout that race. Put himself in position in the second half of the race, was right there, matching everyone's moves, looking like a pro, letting others do the work, but matching every move. And then it's kind of been the story for him it's this a lot. You hit that last bend, 100 and change meters to go, and he's just missing that last final gear that other guys like AREGAWI had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I don't know this for sure, but I feel like if you check the entire field, you could find a race where Ahmed beat everyone else at some point.
Absolutely, yeah.
He's beaten these guys in many races, many Diamond League races and championship races, and that's the struggle with Ahmed. Is he's not a guy to shit the bed.
Yeah,
he's not a guy to show up to the Olympics and have a brutal race. He always has a tremendous race, but there are always 1, 2, 3, 4 guys who run better than he does. It's heartbreaking as a Canadian because you're like, this is the best track distance athlete we have ever had. And
by a long shot.
By a lot. And we might not get another Moh Ahmed for a while.
No.
So you want him to land on top. And I mean, he's got the 5,000, right? That's coming up. But there was a hot moment there with about 800 meters to go that I thought, this is it. This is his shot.
We kind of both looked at each other and were both like, maybe he might win the gold medal here because he was in that right spot. And I mean, again, why this is such an incredible race is because it was anyone's race in the last, even just right down to the last 10 or 15 meters. Mm-hmm. Outside of CHEPTEGEI, it was anyone's medal to grab. And CHEPTEGEI just, again, put on a legacy defining performance. So a couple last things and we'll shut this down here. One, CHEPTEGEI now, he goes away as a world record holder, an Olympic champion, a dominant force on the track for the last 5-ish years. Mm-hmm. And now he's saying he's going to move up to the marathon. Did not have a great debut in Valencia. I think he ran not great. He ran 2:08, I think, and finished in I don't have the numbers in front of me here, but 11th or something like that place. And Valencia is a fast course and produces very, very, very hot times every year. And he struggled a little bit in the marathon, considering the expectations going in. Be really interesting to see how he's pot committed. He's all in for the marathon. I think that's really great for the marathon. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how he does. He's not starting with the clean sheet that someone like Eliud Kipchoge started with. Like Kipchoge, I believe, did Frankfurt as his first race, and then Berlin, and basically went on this crazy winning tear and didn't have a bad performance for the first however many years of his career until that COVID era London Marathon where he had a little hiccup and finished 5th. Really interesting to see what is in store for Joshua Chepetegei, someone that if you're more of a marathoner and less of a trackie, remember that name because he could be one of the next great ones. Last thought, overall picture. We're doing this pod because we're super excited about the event because the race was just absolutely a total banger and we wanted to talk about it and nerd out about it. But just overall, we got our first taste of the Olympic track program at these 2024 Paris Olympics. What's the vibe? How do you feel about it?
I feel like there's a whole lot of hype.
Okay.
The 10,000 meters, I think, is a good litmus test for how much hype there will be, exactly because it's not everyone's favorite event. So if the crowd was the crowd was really loud today.
They were really loud for the entire race. Kind of phenomenal.
Mm-hmm. And if that happens for the 10,000, you wonder what's going to happen for the 1,500s, for the hundreds. And look, we watched all day. We saw the 1,500 meter heats. We saw the 100 meter heats. Even on the heats level, the vibe is good.
Yeah, really good. Mm-hmm. Track appears fast. The creators of the track, Mondo, were bragging that this was the super shoe of tracks. This was going to give the runners a couple percentage points of improvement. And so far, so good.
How many percentage points are we at now?
We're at 46%. Just everyone is just way better than they were before. Which is meted out by some of the times in some regards. But yeah. You had the shoes, the track, the science, what else?
The food? I don't know. Food. What else is there?
Hopefully not the doping.
Evolution of years?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think the vibe was good. There was a packed house by all accounts. It seemed like a packed house. I know there was the New York Times did some reporting this week that like not all the tickets are sold for all the track events, and which is surprising because the Olympics is supposed to be this like overstuffed, mega sold out event everyone wants to go to. So I guess there were a few empty seats here and there, but it didn't sound that way. It sounded like palpable. You could just, there was an intensity. There was a hysteria in on the track that you want to hear, that you want to see as a fan of athletics, right? So I think the track's fast. Stadium looks pretty cool. I mentioned this in our live blog about this. The camera work is awesome. They've finally, the IOC, whomever it is, NBC, BBC, whatever consortium of producers that put on the show that is the Olympic Games, they finally figured out like, hey, you know who does sports entertainment really well is the NFL. What do they do? Oh, they've got like flywire cameras in the air so they can get all these cool sort of like bird's eye view shots that kind of like operate almost like a drone shot. They get they're cutting to all these different angles. They're cutting back to slow-mos. When it's a medal final, they're not cutting away to some frigging ad. Like they figured out how to put on a show. So far, so good with the sports entertainment experience that is the Paris Olympics. I think that is exciting. I'm excited to see the next medal final.
Mm-hmm. Me too. I've cleared my schedule. All
right, let's do it. So we'll periodically, we will be periodically popping on for these sort of like instant reaction pods whenever something really exciting happens and we feel like we've got 20-ish minutes of riffing on it in our systems, and we'll post them. So obviously, if you don't already, subscribe to the podcast wherever you get your podcasts, and you'll be getting these little instant reaction pods dropping in your podcast app here and there. Not just the usual Thursday morning at 5:05 a.m. Eastern time that we do for our weekly pod. There'll be all kinds of instant reaction pods as well. All right, Alex, until the next medal final. Adieu.
Adieu. À la prochaine.